Wonderful. Well, hey, thanks for joining everybody. It's Friday the 13th, which is kind of scary, but I hope that's not going to mean bad luck for any one of us. Like Nate said, we're going to try to keep this informative. This is not a sales pitch, so we're going to try to deliver a lot of value and provide insights that you can use in your business. So the topic: how new product creation increases company valuation. And about how to make your business more attractive to buyers. I'm sure you're all aware that there's a lot of M&A activity going on in the e-commerce space right now. A lot of folks have raised a lot of money and are buying businesses at a never before seen rate. So that's what we're talking about this. But that said, even if you're not trying to sell your business, all these lessons and insights still apply to build the most valuable business that you can. So let's go. Who am I and why am I here talking about this stuff? Well, I've started businesses. I started my first one in 1998 in the .com days, so that ages me a little bit. But yeah, I've been at this for over 20 years. Most of them have been technology-based companies, and I've raised venture capital for them. To date, over $60 million combined for all the companies. I've had successful exits. I've sold companies. I've bought multiple companies as part of this journey. My last company was really the one that got me into this universe of products. It was called Boundless. It was a promotional product business and a platform. And we grew that to $100 million in revenues over 15 years. And over the period of time, we sold a lot of product, $650 million worth of product. And as a result, traveled to China, got a lot of insights in how to create successful businesses or successful products. We sold that business as Zazzle in 2014. Also was recognized in that industry as somebody who brought innovation, brought technology to a traditionally kind of antiquated space. So that was a proud moment too. So quickly, again, not a sales pitch, but who is Gembah? And unless you know who Gembah is, we're really the first platform that's been built to help small, mid-sized e-commerce brands to develop new products from scratch, from A to Z. So, and you don't have to do from A to Z. You can do any one of them a la carte, but we help companies for everything from research to help validate a product opportunity, to design, to develop a complete product design, to sourcing, finding the right factory, and helping with the manufacturing all the way through. So we have folks all over the world that can help with that. We do it with all types of companies, retail brands, D2C brands. We're platform agnostic. It doesn't matter to us where you sell your products. You may be selling on all these platforms. So we work with companies that do all of the above. We are funded by venture capital. You can see the little press release here. We raised about $5 million here this year, and that helps us build this platform that's super helpful for companies in developing products. And we're growing really fast. So we have the whole COVID impact on e-commerce, I think, has even accelerated an already rapidly growing space. So we're excited about that. But that's enough about me. Let's talk about you guys and what we're going to cover here today. So I'm going to give you an example of two different companies that at the surface look very similar, but if you dig deeper, they're actually, one is significantly more valuable to an acquirer than the other one. And we'll talk about that. I'll talk about why acquirers think that way. We'll talk about different strategies to build, I would say here, an FBA business, but any kind of retail business, e-commerce business. We'll talk about the pros and cons. We're going to talk about what kind of business you're building, and then finally get into the 5 steps to create successful products. Hope that sounds good. I see you virtually nodding. So let's jump into it. What are acquirers looking for? As I said, you should be looking at this too if you want to build a valuable business. So let's jump into the example. 2 different companies. We have company A on one side, we have company B on one side. Again, here it says FBA business, but they could be selling on any platform. Bottom line, or the point here, they're selling on the same platform. They're doing the same thing. Each company has about 5 products, $25 average sell price. They're doing a good job sourcing the product, so they have healthy gross margins. They are selling about 25 on average, 25 sales per product per month, which puts them at about $1 million run rate. They're selling almost $100,000 product per month and $1 million annually. So at first glance, these companies should be valued about the same, right? But wait a minute, there's some differences here. So let's say company A is actually have taken an approach of sort of finding whatever product opportunities they see out there, and then really starting with sort of looking at the SKUs. So they have ended up with an unrelated set of products. You know, maybe the one is a toy, another one is a a kitchen product. They really have very little in common. Also, they have picked products that they may have been able to go on Alibaba. They found an existing product, an existing supplier, so they're buying that product as is pretty much. Maybe would put their own brand or packaging on it, but really there's no real customization to it. And as these products are so unrelated, there's not a common brand that ties them together. So, and then let's look at company B instead. This company has all their products in one category. So let's say it could be yoga products or CrossFit or kitchen products or products for the outdoors. But bottom line, all their 5 products are in the same category. And furthermore, they all made them unique in some way through some level of customization. So you can't find this exact same product anywhere else out there. This company is the only one that makes them. And in addition, they have one brand, one consistent brand. Since all the products in the same space, they've been able to brand them all the same way, and it makes total sense, right? So how do you think that an acquirer, somebody who wants to buy this business, look at these two? Well, let's put on our acquire hat and look into these. Here are some things that acquirers look for. Of course, they look for revenues and margins and ratings and reviews and all that stuff. That's sort of table stakes. But then if we go a level deeper, what do they care about? You hear a lot of acquirers or investors talking about product moats, right? Moats, so like the moat around the medieval castle to try to keep out the enemy, right? Similar thing here. You want to have something that keeps out your enemies, that keeps your competitors out. And it's really, by having a different product that like we talked about company B, they have created their own brand, they have created a different product, maybe they even have some design patents or something. So product moats, does company A have it? No, not really. Company B, yes. Further, product extension, companies, they love to be able to launch additional products. If you already have a customer that's in the yoga space, they already love your yoga mat, you could probably sell them a water bottle or a yoga bag or whatever it might be. The investors call this CLTV, customer lifetime value, right? You can acquire a customer once and then sell multiple times, many products. Company A, not so much. Company B, yes. Acquirers always, they look at consolidating operations, right? They want to retain revenues, but they want to reduce costs. How do they do that? By consolidating operations. It's a lot easier for them to do that if you have a consistent product line, if you are working with maybe 1 or 2 factories versus if you have 5, 6 different factories that you're working with. So they want to consolidate it. They want to consolidate marketing too. Marketing is a lot easier if you're marketing all the 5 products to the same type of customer versus if you have to think of 5 different target customers. Further, channel extension. Can you sell these products on other channels? Like in this example, they're primarily FBA sellers, but can you also go and sell on Shopify and eBay and Etsy, etc.? And if you don't have a brand, if you don't have unique products, not so much. Retailers are not going to be interested in taking in another, similar products to what they're already selling. Finally, acquirers like to keep things simple. They want to have clean assets that they're buying, and the more consistent your products are, the simpler your supplier relationships are, the easier it is for them to consolidate operations and create a more profitable company. Because in the end, that's what it's all about, right? So if you look at these two companies that on the surface look very, very similar, you look at their income statements, you can't tell a difference. But if you look at it from an acquirer's perspective, company B is clearly a lot more valuable because they're looking at not just what is the business doing today, they're looking at what can the business do long term for me. Hope that makes sense. So let's talk about how did company A end up with a business model they did? Well, we see a lot of folks taking this approach, what we call the product listing approach, particularly in the FBA space, where people go in and try to find this hole in the market, if you will. So they start searching for products. They try to find some product that has a lot of searches, a lot of sales, but maybe it's not a great product. They may try to find something that only have a 3.5 rating, or maybe an under-marketed listing that they don't have good images and stuff like that. And I think the downside of that approach in some ways is that there's a lot of people using that same strategy, using these same research tools. And there's a lot of great research tools out there that give you access to an incredible amount of data. But if all your competitors are also looking at the same thing, then, are you really differentiating? Right? And also, if you use this methodology, you're not getting any intellectual property. You don't really have ownership of these products. And there's very little that prevents somebody else from launching that same product, or even the overseas factory to sell that product directly in the US. And you don't really have any way to defend against that. So the other approach, company B here, they took a customer first approach, really starting with the target customers, defining who that person is, and then identifying multiple products that customer is already buying. I think this is a key differentiator too. You're not trying to invent something hoping that this customer is going to buy it, but rather look at what those customers are already buying, like the yoga example. Everybody who goes to yoga, they have a yoga mat, right? So don't try to invent some new contraption. Start with that and try to create a better yoga mat in some way, right? And then what I always recommend is that you start with one product and then you develop multiple different products for that same target customer, and make them yours through incremental intervention. So you change some little thing on it. A yoga mat is a yoga mat, but maybe you have a different handle on it. Maybe you create a bag for the yoga mat, something that makes it unique, and then you can market it and you can own it. So those are the two options. And as you can tell by now, probably that I'm a pretty strong proponent for company B, the approach of developing your own products. But in all transparency, let's also talk about some of the pros and cons about that. Custom products, they take more money and more time. So there's no question about that. You often require product design. You need to hire experts that knows how to do that. You may have to develop some molds or tooling, which adds costs. It takes time too, right? If you're going buying an existing product from a catalog, that goes a lot faster. There's less risk. But on the other hand, then custom products can also sustain margins better, because you're not trying to sell the same product everybody else is, and when the only way for them to compete is by lowering the price. Custom product really creates that opportunity for you to maintain margins and build a brand, right? So, and a lot of companies also are somewhere in between, right? And just because you started in one way doesn't mean that you can't go the other way. Often people start with a couple of products and see which one works, and then you can develop a brand over time if you haven't already done so. So I think it comes down to, what is your goal? There's nothing wrong with either approach, but if you are really building the company to have an exit, to have somebody buy it, I would strongly recommend that you try to build your own brand, that you develop your own custom products that you can own, because it's going to dramatically increase the value of your business. If you're running a side business to just generate some extra cash flow, then the sort of hole in the market strategy is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Reselling other people's stuff, you can make a lot of money doing that. But if you're looking at an ultimate exit, I would recommend company B approach. So to the Cheshire Cat and Alice in Wonderland, it's important to know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, then any road will get you there. All right, so that's the high level. Now let's get into the meat and hopefully provide you some insights. So let's say I've convinced you that you are ready to go create new products, or maybe you're already creating new products, but you're struggling a little bit to figure out, how do I do this better, faster, cheaper? So here we've done a lot of this. We've worked on hundreds and hundreds of products. So these are some of the best practices that we have found over the years. 5 steps: focus, identifying your target customer; research, explore before you spend a lot of money; design, create your own design to make it unique so you can own it; do good sourcing, good manufacturing. So we'll go into all these in a little more detail here. So step number 1, I alluded to it a little bit. I think it's so important to identify your target customer, and not just generically to say middle-aged men with receding hairlines. Well, I mean, you're getting into receding hairlines, then you're starting to get into it. But really pick a person that you understand. So not this generic description of middle-aged men, but really, try to find that this outdoor enthusiast that loves to go hunting. And, even better if you have someone in your personal network that is that kind of person, because to try to guess or invent products for somebody you don't truly understand, that's a really risky proposition. It's much better to find a specific customer and talk to that customer, make sure you understand what they're buying today and what do they like or not like about that product. So step number one, who are you selling to? Step number two, do the research, because this is a costly endeavor. And unless you have unlimited funding, which most small, mid-sized businesses don't, you got to make sure that you place the right bet, right? Before you go order a whole container full of something, make sure that this is really the product that people are going to buy. And we recommend two types of research. The qualitative research, which is kind of what I was talking about before. Go out there and talk to customers. Sometimes I think we make a mistake as e-commerce businesses that we don't actually talk to people in person, but there's no better way to get feedback on a product idea or a prototype or your first product than to go actually observe people, have them use it and get their feedback on it, right? So always big proponent of that, and read reviews and do things like that to make sure you understand what do people like or not like about an existing product. And then the quantitative research, that's, some of these research tools, it can be very overwhelming, right? You have millions of products, and how do you dig into this? So something we do at Gembah, we have our own research tools. We can help you find opportunities. So if you're in the outdoors hunting gear business, we can, with that lens, go in and dig through the data and help you identify product opportunities. Or if you already have an idea, we can help you validate how big of an opportunity that is, so that you don't go invest in something that's highly competitive and you have a lot of entrenched big players in there, right? So key to make sure that you validate the opportunity before you jump in and start spending a ton of money. Then if you're designing your own product, you're going to have to spend a little bit of money, right? You're going to have to put together a team that can help you change the product. And I see what we see the most is incremental innovation, right? Small changes that you can make to an existing product, change the packaging, change the colors, change some materials, create a different casing, make that product yours somehow, but mimic an already existing and working product. New innovation is, of course, super exciting. If you can create a brand new product that nobody's used before, the opportunity is bigger, but also, of course, there's more investment that goes into it, because you're going to have to design this product from scratch. So I guess as a general rule, I think the more complex the innovation is, the more expensive and time consuming, but also the more differentiated your product could be. So hope that makes sense. So design, the second part about design, I think is really important, and some people miss this, that it's a complex process that requires a lot of different skill sets. So some people go on Upwork and say, oh, I'll just go find a designer. But when you think of it, like in this product I have here, a blow dryer, you're going to require electrical engineering, you're going to require mechanical engineering, and you're going to require an industrial designer to design, the shape and look and feel. And the process that you go through designing that product is also super important, right? You don't want to go ahead and come up with some cool design if you don't actually know if that is possible to manufacture. So having the right expertise, going through the right process of several iterations of sketches, then doing 2D renderings, 3D renderings, and then finally developing the full spec is really important that you follow that right process, because otherwise you might spend $10,000 to develop some spec, and then you take it to factory and I don't know what to do with this. So be really careful that you're partnering with the right resources and that they really know what they're doing and that they have developed similar products in the past. Because if you end up with incomplete or not the right type of specifications, factories are not going to be able to provide you a quote, and they're not going to be able to manufacture it. And often we see that if it's not done right in the beginning, people have to go back and spend more money of retrofitting the original design. So your product should always be designed for manufacturing, so that you're working with somebody who have designed products for manufacturing, not just someone who can create pretty pictures. All right, we're almost at the end here. Sourcing, I mean, I could spend an hour talking about sourcing. I guess the high level, if you're experienced, you know this stuff. If this is a first time or maybe the first few times that you're sourcing overseas, I would strongly recommend to engage in experts. There's so many things that can go wrong. Just the cultural differences, language barriers, not knowing if you're really dealing with the factory. If you go on Alibaba, for example, you know, are you really dealing with a factory? Is it a middleman? Is it a broker? It's hard to know if you haven't done it before. Sampling, particularly when you're creating a new product, you have to go through a sampling phase so you see how the product turns out and go through prototyping, etc. And you have to expect that it's going to be several iterations. Like we said before, custom product, it's going to take longer. It's going to give you more value, but it's going to take longer and cost a little more money. Finally, manufacturing. You know, sometimes I think if you haven't been in China, if you haven't been to factories over there, it's hard to appreciate how much differences there are between different factories and how different people do it. I would recommend that anytime you're creating a new product, you have to have feet on the street in that factory as soon as that product rolls off the production line. Because if you don't, you risk end up with a container full of stuff that that doesn't meet your specifications. So engage an expert and help you with all these things, shipping, logistics, and importing. And even if you've done it many times before, I know a lot right now, you know, there's not a lot of people that want to travel to China. Some work with someone like Gembah. We have feet on the street over there. We can go and visit any factory that you're working with to vet them, to make sure that they do things in a sustainable way that is in line with social compliance. So I think that's super important. Okay, we're almost out of time, so I'm going to jump over to Q&A. I'd say in closing, before we go to Q&A, start with the end in mind. What type of business are you building? Is it a little side cash flow business? Fine. Then you may not have to create your own products, your own brand, etc. But if you really want to try to build value in your business and make it attractive to acquirers, I highly recommend you develop your own custom products. That's it. Nate, I'll hand it back to you. See, do we have any questions from anybody in the audience?
Yeah, we got several coming in. While I'm just queuing that up, Henrik, if you could push out that poll real quick. I just want to give everybody the opportunity to, if you'd like somebody from Gembah to follow up and talk to you about your specific product idea or need, just simply click yes here in the quick poll. We'll just keep this up for 15, 20 seconds. If not, no. I hope the information was valuable. But as Henrik said, at any step in this process, the areas that Henrik covered, we can help and happy to answer questions. So leave that up for about 5 more seconds. But with that, we had a good amount of questions, Henrik. So I'm going to pick a few that were overlapping with some folks. One common question was, where are most of the factories located that you guys work with?
A great question, and one you can imagine we get a lot with the recent trade wars and tariffs. So we still have a really strong presence in China, of course, but we're also established in India, we're in Vietnam, we're in Taiwan. We started doing more work in South Latin America, we're in Mexico. We started doing some projects in Colombia. We do some work in the good old USA, but as you can imagine, most times it's just not competitive from a cost perspective. But we do a lot of prototyping here, and sometimes you can assemble things here. There's some some cut and sew products. There's certainly things that you can do here too. But I'd say we work with companies all the time to get quotes from multiple places, but more often than not, you still end up in China because it's just in many products it's hard to compete with the infrastructure they have over there.
Another question, common one that several folks asked, is just how long does it typically take to create a new product?
That's a great question. And again, it comes down to complexity. If it's if you want to create a little teddy bear or a simple wooden toy, that can go very fast. I'd say as a general guideline, if you try to create a new product, it's going to take at least 100 days, right? And that's an accelerated process, which has a lot to do with quite honestly how quickly you can get through and make decisions. But we did make as complex of a product as a massage gun, one of those that has electrical components, mechanical component, and we were able to create that in 110 days, I think it was, from the moment the project started to go through the entire research, design, and manufacturing. So I would anticipate at least 3 months, and that's if you're running fast.
This was another common one as well by multiple people, like the spec, kind of the range of services that Gembah offers. Where do you just kind of stay in the kind of the 5 areas that you went through today? Do you go beyond that on the selling side or the financing side, or is it really just in the research all the way through production?
Great question. As of today, we do not do financing, and we don't have integrations into different selling platforms. It is on our roadmap. We plan to do that sometime in the future, but right now we are squarely focused on those 4 offerings: research, design, sourcing, and manufacturing.
Okay, great. We got time for, let's say, 2 more questions, just to, again, be conscious of everybody's time. Generally cost, I think, is probably what does it cost to create a new product?
Mm-hmm.
Might be a little bit of a longer answer.
Yeah.
Lots of people asking about costs.
Yeah, and sorry to keep saying it depends, but it really does, right? Like I said before, a simple little wooden toy, there you're talking about maybe spending a few $1,000s to the whole design and taking it through the process. If you're talking about something more complex like a massage gun, or something that has mechanical, electric component, you can talk about $20,000 up to $100,000 if you do something really complex, like something medical, in the medical field or something like that. So it's a wide variety depending on the complexity of the product. But yeah, I think, and the other thing that sometimes people miss is that you have to have a budget. Let's say that you're doing an intermediate complexity product, and that the design is going to cost $10,000. Let's say that for argument's sake. We always try to educate customers, like, make sure that you realize that that's not your entire budget. So we try to work with our customers always to say, make sure you have the budget for the tooling, that you have enough budget for your first purchase order, that you have enough budget for packaging. So you can't just look at the design, but we'll work with our customers through that process to ensure that they allocate the right budgets to the right task in the process.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it was clear. I think we'll go ahead and wrap up on one last one. I think I'll combine a couple of questions here that I think will hit is, obviously from a research perspective, helping someone understand if they have a viable product for the market is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. Which I think is one question somebody asked is, do you help with that? Which I think the short answer is absolutely. Gembah helps with that. But the second part of that question, which a couple of people asked, is around IP. What does Gembah do to help kind of protect or facilitate, clients' IP in terms of agreements, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a great question too, and a really important one. So we're not attorneys. We can't give legal advice, but we do have a network of really good intellectual property attorneys that have worked with these issues for years, for decades. So what Gembah does, we will sit down with our client and look at the project and try to assess, are there potential patent issues here? And we can make a recommendation on if you should spend the time and money to retain a patent attorney, if we believe that there's an opportunity for you to go after a design patent. But we're very clear about that. We don't give legal advice. We don't provide legal opinions, but we certainly can put our business hat on and say, yeah, I mean, this is maybe something that you could patent, and we recommend that you retain the patent attorney. And then we're happy to refer you to someone in our network that we can vouch for, that we know is really good.
Okay, great. All right, well, we want to thank everyone for attending today. Again, we're just over past the half hour. I want to be, again, cognizant of everybody's time. I want to thank everybody for attending. For those of you, there was probably 6 or 7 questions, unfortunately, we weren't able to get to. We will follow up via email with answers to your questions, so you can expect that over the next few days into early next week. And for those of you that did ask for a follow-up phone call, we'll get that scheduled, and you should be having somebody reach out to you early next week as well. So again, Henrik, thank you for your time. Thank you for everybody else's time. Hope everybody got something value from the presentation, and look forward to talking to the folks that are interested in chatting with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everybody.
All right.